Really looking forward to it. But Dave, maybe it's you. Maybe it's you in American West. Let's talk about the Storm project up in North America, up in Northern Canada.
Yes.
Really looking forward to learning more how you made the discovery and runs a bit through the process.
Thank you. And maybe because we are last, that's saying something. But no, I think I think Snowline's in the running there for sure with that deposit. But we're copper, not gold, so that's okay. Look, thanks everyone for staying with us. It's been a long day. I'll try and keep this fairly light and high level. I'm a geologist, and we are looking for copper. And just to reflect on this photo, this is essentially what the core looks like from Storm, and how the mineralisation forms in the rock. So a couple of key points here is very coarse-grained, and that has significant metallurgical and processing benefits, which I'll talk to. So who are we? So Dave, as I said, I'm the managing director for American West Metals. I'm cut my teeth in mine geology, working for big gold companies, AngloGold, Place Pacific and Western Mining. So started in the mines and then moved, as Western Mining got acquired by BHP, into the exploration space, and that working globally in Russia, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, Africa, etc., etc. And while I'm telling you that is really because what exposure to these companies gives you is exposure to large operations and large mines. So you get to realise what a significant discovery and what a significant operation looks like. I think that's very important in the junior spaces because a lot of people that come straight out of exploration focus on very small things, you know, little veins here and there, and really can't see the wood, the forest through the trees sort of thing. So it does set us up, and really the experience I got, and similar to what Neil was saying, is that you do realise you have to go to new jurisdictions in the world to find these things. You do realise, you know, the cost to do these things, etc. And that's essentially the thesis that we put American West Metals together. Part of my roles there was also doing business development, and you know, coming from as an Australian company, we were happy to look globally for assets. A lot of assets were struggling on the TSX prior to listing, which is about 2021. And so there's an opportunity there, and we formed this company around assets that... The other point to mention here is that we talk about exploration discovery, but the chance of discovery for a greenfields project, 0.1%. I'm not a betting man, but that's not a very good bet, you know. If 99.9% of all your money is just going to go up in smoke. So part of us forming American West Metals is around assets that are significant drilling databases and, you know, have already essentially been discovered, but really hadn't had that work put into them to turn them into an asset with value. So that's where we are today. So 2 assets in Utah, West Desert, Copper Warrior. Utah, fantastic jurisdiction, like the famous 4 down there, including Idaho 5. Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah. But I won't talk about that today. I want to talk about focus in the interest of time on Storm and Seal, but mostly Storm, which is a copper asset in far north Canada. I'm not going to talk about copper also in the interest of time because my crystal ball is probably like yours, a bit fuzzy. But I can say a few things, is that for those that are bearish about the EV revolution and power and all that sort of stuff, and maybe this decoupling that we were talking about not happening or happening slower, was another key thing that's actually driving copper, I think, is that, and that's unfortunately war. You know, all of these major industries are gearing up to produce munitions, and copper goes into all of that. So even if decoupling happens and things happen, we've got this conflict in the world which is also driving copper. So I think we are in a perfect storm for copper, and maybe that's reflecting the price. But the other thing that some of our good people have talked to today is M&A, the last point there, and that's companies finding new jurisdictions to go into. And I talked about it a little bit before, but you know, taking that risk, going to new jurisdictions. If they don't, then what other companies can they buy, and what other acquisitions are potentially out there? Again, I'll talk to this picture. A picture tells 1,000 words, and it's better than listening to me. Unfortunately, I don't have a video. Next time I'm doing a video, because it means I don't have to speak. But some key points here is that this is remote and it's far north. But if you've worked in Australia, you're familiar with fly-in and fly-out operations. So no one lives here, and never have. People were moved up here or got offered to move here by the Canadian government. So fly in, fly out, aircraft straight to site. We use Yellowknife as our base. Resolutes are also an important logistics point for us. The other thing is there's no vegetation. I think the Peru and Tinker, that's similar, very, very nice to operate. Well, here there's not even a blade of grass. There's no ants. We have 500 metres of permafrost. And that means, obviously, it's very, very well ESG credentialed in terms of we don't have to cut forest down to get drill rigs in and all that. It makes open exploration, etc., very easy to do. So it's highly accessible. And the other thing to point here is that we've got a good relationship with the Resolute community. Like I said, this is not Inuit own land, but there are people in the region. Now, one lady I'll point to, she's got it back to us. She actually worked at the Polaris zinc mine up there back in the day. So she's also the wildlife officer and just came down to have a look and see what's going on at our camp. So very good relationship with the locals. So here we are. We are north. We are in the Arctic. So I actually got told by someone very close to the company in some of our promotion is, oh, Dave, can you use less snow in your photos? We don't want to give a bad vibe for people. I'm like, well, we're in the Arctic. We need to be practical. But it is a very good place to operate. And a lot of Australian investors actually wonder how do you work up there? You're too far north. You'll never get it out of the ground. Well, there's 8 operating mines in Northwest Territories and none of it today. A lot of those are diamond and gold, so they can fly their product out, obviously. But you'll see where we sit, it's in the archipelago up there. We're on the coast. It's a regular sea lift route. It's ice-free 3 to 4 months of the year. You can access it in other times with an icebreaker. And there is, within 2 other mines that were very close, Polaris and Nanisivik, which John worked at. And unfortunately he's not here, but I'll definitely rack his brains later about operating there. Mary River, also currently in operation as well. So very well, I guess it's a tier 1 mining jurisdiction, which is, I guess, overlooked. The other thing to point out here and talk about M&A is that recently, where the little ship is and the islands at the very north, BHP's just staked a major position there. So what this means, and I having worked for BHP, particularly in the exploration, means they don't go there unless they've got access to market and whether they consider their giant discovery potential. So they see this as the next frontier for them in terms of copper. And they've quite publicly said, look, we're looking for porphyry, sediment-hosted copper, and nickel sulphide. So 3 big ones. So what have we got? Storm. We put our maiden resource out this year in January. And there's many reasons why we did. The deposit's open in all directions, but we put 200,000 tonnes of copper on the books in 8 weeks of drilling. So that really highlights 95% of our drill holes hit copper. And you can see the ore body split over 4 different ore bodies at this point. But there's fantastic upside exploration potential, which I'll talk to. This is what it looks like. Very amenable to open pit mining. 100% of the resource is sulphide and 100% of it's open pittable. So these kind of grades, it ranks amongst the highest, open pittable copper grades globally. You can see there's 2 distinct, domains to the mineralisation. There's the higher plus 1.5% copper, but also the red, which is the lower grade material. Now this pit was done on a $3.75 copper price. As today, obviously, and that was highly economic at that point. But you can see here it's open in every direction. You can see some of the intersections on the margins. One of our focuses this year is to grow this significantly. And what I mean in terms of growth, so the copper here, particularly in the high grade, responds really well to geophysics. So it's hosted in dolomite, it's copper sulphide, so 2 very clear, contrasts in terms of the geophysical properties. So what we found is that all these red and yellow dotted lines are geophysical expressions. And most of them don't have drilling in them. Where we do have drilling, you consider them the discoveries last year, Thunder and Lightning Ridge, they're 2 new zones. You can see there we hit 50 metres at 3% copper. That included 20 metres at 6% copper. And also Lightning Ridge was about 30 metres at 2.1% copper. There's no resources, they're not part of the resource. Another one we're following up and we're drilling as we speak is this gap area, which has got 2 and 4% copper there. That's a really big anomaly. We're drilling that today. So lots of news flow coming, but this is the immediate storm area. We believe there's significant resource growth potential here. But that's essentially 5% of the belt. So you can see Storm is that little dot now. We have over 100 kilometres of prospective horizon. Tornado and Blizzard, we have copper gossan sticking out of the ground. That's 10 kilometres down the track. Identical geology to Storm. The other interesting one, we have Tempest, which is about 70 kilometres south. We visited last year. We've identified copper and zinc anomalies over 4 kilometres. It's sticking out of the ground. Come and see us. I can show you the photos from the helicopter. They're essentially rust-coloured rocks going for 4 kilometre. It's interesting there. It actually sits with this zinc horizon we have as well, which is what the Seal zinc deposit sits in. Seal's a very high-grade zinc deposit, 10.5% zinc, 50 grams silver. It's actually related to the Polaris zinc mine up there as well. So zinc potential there, but look, our focus is copper, but we think Tempest might be where these two belts are coming together, so you've got a bit of different mixing, or there's a potential for VMS-style deposits down there. Now, Storm, why is it different? There's copper and then there's copper. So there's the porphyry, which we've just learnt about today. There's also the VMS, which we've talked about today. But this is sedimentary hosted copper, so that has the benefits of having very high grades, but also the size potential. So at one end of the spectrum, you have Kamoa-Kakula, 50 million tonnes of copper, all the way down to, but the average size of these ore bodies is in the 10 to 20 million tonne range. But they usually form as clusters, and that's the key here. Similar deposits would be Mateo in Botswana. So the Central Kalahari copper belt is certainly an analogy. We've got the Democratic Republic of Congo copper all through there. We've got, which includes Kamoa-Kakula. We've got the Cooper Schiefer in Europe. So these are very large deposits. They generally form in clusters, and they're usually stratiform. So this cartoon is very simple. Cyclone deposit you can see there. We think we've hit the tip of the iceberg literally because we drilled 4 deep holes below Cyclone last year. Most of them were about a couple of kilometres apart. Every single hole hit copper at the same stratigraphic horizon, which is about 270 to 320 vertical metres. Now, we might think we're good geologists, but that's statistically impossible to do. No, we didn't have any thick economic intersections, but we did hit economic style mineralisation up to 2% copper. So 4 holes, 15 square kilometres, there's more down there. We'll look to expanding our exploration into that this year, sorry. Now this is a unicorn. This is, I guess what we're really driven towards given the ESG potential here. So what we found is, given the nature of the ore, which is the mineralisation is dominantly chalcocite, which is 80% copper, so very, very high grade, and the coarseness of it is that we found by simply crushing it down and then sorting it through ore sorting or using other beneficiation techniques, we could make a very high grade direct shipping ore opportunity. So that means there's no tailings dam, there's no reagents, there's simple crushing, screening. It's like a road base or limestone quarry down the road. So what that is for us is obviously this very low footprint, very low cost, and potentially very high margin development opportunity. So that's what we're driven towards. This is the unicorn. People always ask, is there examples worldwide? Not so much in copper. The DRC does it a lot, mostly Chinese owned, so we don't know a lot about it. But certainly Sandfire Resources, the start of DeGrussa was a DSO, and I think they made about $360 million off just a direct ship, sent it straight to China, that paid for the mill and the rest of the mine. So highly valuable, very simple, and very high margin. So, and look, when you're up in that part of the world, I think not being able to having to permit a tailings dam and all the things that go with a traditional flotation plant, this is the way to go. Polaris was essentially a DSO. That was Teck Cominco's most profitable mine when it was running, so during the 70s and 80s. So this is what we're focused on. We'll have news out about this shortly. We've shown that ore sorting can work. We're now working on and ore sorting only works down to a certain size range. So we're now coming down that and taking it all the way down to 1 to 2 millimetres to be able to process most of the ore body. So really fascinating. This is really exciting for us. And look, this is something also that we don't need a major to come in with this. The kind of capital that this requires we could, you know, walk around the room here and probably put that money together. And that's the exciting thing, because we think we've got the team to do it, and we don't need the support of the majors. So this year, last year we had a very successful year defining the maiden resource and just showing that Storm is a significant copper project, but we're actually accelerating that this year. So resource expansion, like I said, the ore body's open in every direction. Drilling's going on as we speak. It's been going on for the last couple of weeks. Had a couple of delays with we're building a bigger rig and also a little bit of weather, which is unusual up there. And I must point out, actually, one thing, despite it's actually a desert, so being in the Arctic, we only get less than 1 metre of snow every year. So it's an interesting fact, but it means that, you know, we have had some bad weather this week. And then exploring. So 2 key points to us is resource expansion, and I guess this is fighting that losange curve, trying to offset discovery and offset development by having 2 curves going at the same time. But resource expansion and then also exploring, giving investors the sugar hits and those, you know, the 50 metre at 3% copper. I think this is important. I'm essentially an exploration geologist, and we want to show the growth potential of this belt. Lots of development work going on in the background as well. So mining studies. We've already got a mining schedule on the existing resource. We've got all the project development, airfields, ports and stuff being designed. Economic studies as well. We're very advanced with the environmental work. We did a season last year. We're doing a season this year. If we go to put out a PFS level study at the back end of this year, we'll already have 18 months of environmental work up front. That's going to really expedite the permitting timeline for us. And we think all of these things are really going to give American West Metals a transformational change. I think, you know, on the back of this, we could go very quickly. Some example of companies that, and again, the discovery thing, you don't have to go from zero to hero overnight. There are companies like Western Areas, Jubilee Mines, if anyone remembers Australia, and Sandfire Resources, where they all started with these, you know, I think Western Areas started with 10 to 15,000 tonnes of nickel, and then accreted and did organic growth and became, you know, bought out for $1.7 billion. So there are different ways to skin a cat. We will expand the belt. This is 10 to 15 years exploration potential here. But if we can get cash flow as soon as we can with a developing mine, that'll fund that for us. So that's it in a nutshell. We have $10.7 million in the bank, so very well funded to move this forward. Market capitalisation about 75 million, and a team which you can look at after this in the interest of time that includes a couple of people working with BHP, and Dan Locker, our chairman, was the ex-managing director of Western Areas, Australia's second largest nickel producer. So we have the team, the money and the project. Thank you.
Dave, fantastic presentation, but I'm hugely disappointed. You know why?
No video.
No photos of the solar northern lights these days.
Well,
did you have
too far north?
We couldn't see them?
No.
No way?
No.
Hugely disappointed. I expected nice bright colours and...
We want to see rocks and
Of
copper.
course. But come on, you're so far up north, you know, you figured you'd show us a great photo of it.
No. Next year.
There's actually a thing of too far north.
There is, yeah. I think if you're around Yellowknife, and the Canadians will probably tell me I'm wrong, that's probably the best place to be, but we are fairly way north.
Interesting.
I think Polaris is the most northerly mine on the planet.
Yeah. Interesting. There we go. We learned something. I learned something,
yes.
Obviously, right? Do we have any questions for Dave? You have one? Yeah?
Yeah, I wonder what is the bottom of the grams per ton? It's still profitable.
Oh, the copper.
Let me quickly, just for the audience at home, like what's the economic cutoff grade for a project where you're located?
We use 0.35% copper as our economic cutoff for the open pits. Once we solidify the exact flow sheet for the processing, that'll may drive that either way. But the 2 grade differences we use there, 0.35% and 1.5, that's used generally globally for sediment-hosted copper deposits. So there's a lot of examples like Mateo, like I said, the Sandfire Resources asset in Botswana is very similar.
And there is no combination of minerals in one mine?
Yeah, there is, and sorry I didn't mention it, but we do have silver. As example, Mateo would be 0.9% copper and 12 grams silver. We're 1.2% copper and probably in the 3 to 10 gram silver range. Silver's, we don't quote equivalents because so many variables to it, obviously. For us, it's about the copper and whether, silver has to be plus 30 grams per tonne to be payable in concentrate. So a lot of people don't realise that, but not every, you need enough of it, and so.
And not silver.
Silver.
Yeah, silver or sulfur. Because it,
Oh, sulfur.
Oh, sulfur.
Yes.
it was copper sulfide.
Yeah, so it's a copper sulphide, which is chalcocite, is the mineral, and it's copper and sulfur. Essentially, that's all it is. We also got silver in that as well that gets carried, but nothing else. There's no arsenic, cadmium, selenium, boron, nothing deleterious.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Dave. And
Cheers.
of course, you'll be around at the reception
Yep.
later on as well.